And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. It was nice to be away. I got a little poison ivy, and I caught and released a bunch of fish, and I gained 5 pounds. I had a great time. Thanks to everybody here for making it possible for me to have some time away. Thanks to Ari and Joy for filling in while I was gone. Now that I am back, I want to say thanks to the news gods for keeping things suitably insane. So there's a real reason for me to be here, trying to make sense of what's going on. Here's one just for a sampling. Today in North Dakota, the United States Air Force announced that it is posting a $5,000 reward for the public to help with a very unsettling problem the Air Force has gotten itself into. Look at the headline on this. Force that protects U.S. nuclear weapon. Do we have the headline? Come on, put it up there. Oh, I can't see it on my monitor. I have the wrong monitor up. There we go. Now I couldn't tell that you could see it. Force that protects U.S. nuclear weapons loses explosives on North Dakota road, offers $5,000 to get them back. Yes, this is how the news gods welcome me home from vacation. Here's the lead. Quote, the Air Force is offering $5,000 for leads on the whereabouts of a box of explosive grenade rounds that its personnel accidentally dropped on a road in North Dakota while traveling between 2 intercontinental ballistic missile sites. According to a statement from Maddow Air Force Base, airmen from the 91st Missile Wing Security Forces team were traveling on gravel roads on May 1st in North Dakota when the back hatch of their vehicle opened and a container filled with the explosive ammunition fell out. The Air Force sent more than 100 airmen to walk the entire 6-mile route where the grenades were probably lost, according to a statement from the local sheriff. But 2 weeks after it was lost, the box of explosives still has not been found. The missing ordnance is a belt of linked grenades for the MK-19 automatic grenade launcher. According to the sheriff, quote, this ammunition is specific to that launcher and will not operate in any other launching device without catastrophic failure. So if you're watching tonight from North Dakota and you have recently found a 42-pound green metal crate on a dirt road somewhere near Minot, do not open it. The Air Force apparently didn't tell the local sheriff until 3 days after this thing went missing. But now they are setting up an anonymous tip line and offering the $5,000 reward and making this public service announcement because, quote, any damage to the container could result in an explosion. According to an airbase spokesman, quote, if anyone locates the box and finds the ammunition in a damaged state, the area should be evacuated immediately. Now, again, this is a box of live grenades dropped out of the back of a truck on a bumpy road, and nobody noticed for at least 6 miles, couldn't find it when they went looking for it, didn't tell the local cops for 3 days, but now it's been 2 weeks, and so, Oh, and by the way, this is the part of the U.S. military that is responsible for the security of our live nuclear weapons. It's been that kind of day in the news today. Welcome back, right? Today, North Korea called off talks with South Korea less than 24 hours before those talks were supposed to start in the DMZ. The North said they were calling off tomorrow's planned summit because there's a joint military exercise going on between the U.S. and South Korean militaries right now. Now, this is an exercise that happens every year. It's not a surprise. It's been happening every year for like a decade. But today, North Korea, surprise, decided that this planned military exercise, this annual thing, is now viewed by them as such a terrible provocation that the talks tomorrow with South Korea are off at the last minute. And by the way, they say this also might mean that the meeting next month between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, that's off too. Nobody ever accused the North Korean dictator of being the world's most rational negotiator. At least not until the Trump administration decided there was no reason why Donald Trump shouldn't become the first U.S. president ever to meet with a North Korean dictator. But now that totally unprecedented meeting next month may be off. Both South Korea and the White House appear to have been caught completely flat-footed by this surprise announcement today from the North. They had no idea it was coming. And no matter how you feel about the prospect of Donald Trump talking to the North Korean dictator and calling him honorable and complimenting him for how excellently he treats American prisoners in North Korea, no matter how you feel about all that, surprise is not a feeling anybody looks forward to when it comes to anything having to do with North Korea and nuclear weapons. So We are still watching that story develop this evening. For now, it looks like the North and South Korea summit tomorrow is definitely off. It looks like the U.S.-North Korea summit next month is basically on ice. But anything could happen at any moment. We'll let you know more if we learn more over the course of this hour. In federal court in Washington this afternoon, Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort was dealt a big setback. His lawyers had once again sought to have the multiple felony charges pending against him thrown out, basically by arguing that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, was somehow improperly pursuing this line of inquiry and these charges against Paul Manafort. Manafort is pursuing that same line in both D.C. and in Virginia. He's facing charges in both districts. The Virginia motion is still pending, but the judge ruled today on this matter in D.C., and she ruled against Manafort in a big way. Quote, "The indictment alleges not only that defendant Manafort's Ukrainian clients were supportive of and supported by Russia, but that Manafort's primary client was embedded in Russia during some of the events relevant to the charges. Defendant Manafort's main client in Ukraine was former Ukrainian Prime Minister Viktor Yanukovych, who sought Manafort's assistance in his effort to be reelected. Mr. Yanukovych was widely reported to have ties to Russia. Manafort has also done business with and was sued in New York State court by an entity owned by Russian billionaire Oleg Deripaska, who reportedly has ties to the Russian president. The special counsel would have been remiss to ignore such an obvious potential link between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Quote, the indictment falls well within the authority granted to the special counsel to conduct the ongoing investigation previously confirmed by then director of the FBI, James Comey, before Congress, including any links and or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the Trump campaign. Quote, in order to reach the end of the road and come to a conclusion about whether or not there was coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, a key place to begin is with the individuals who would have been in a position to coordinate. Who had connections to the Russian government? Who attended meetings on behalf of the campaign? Given the combination of Manafort's prominence within the campaign and his ties to Ukrainian officials supported by and operating out of Russia, as well as to Russian oligarchs, Manafort was an obvious person of interest. So Donald Trump's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, already had his civil suit against the special counsel and the Justice Department thrown out. The judge hearing his criminal case in D.C. has also now today ripped Manafort's attack on the legitimacy of Robert Mueller and the legitimacy of the special counsel's investigation. The judge has also denied Manafort's motion to dismiss the felony charges pending against him in D.C. Again, Manafort will be trying this same line of argument in Virginia as well to try to get the charges dropped there, too. But this ruling today does not bode well. It was not just a no. It was a no with about 10 exclamation points from this judge. Beyond that legal trouble for the president's campaign chairman today, the New York Times tonight has also just dropped this little box of grenades out the back of the truck. According to the Times tonight, the FBI and the U.S. Justice Department are now investigating the data firm that the Trump campaign used during the 2016 election, the controversial data firm that has just disbanded itself in Britain, Cambridge Analytica. According to the Times tonight, quote, it is not clear whether the DOJ and FBI investigation of Cambridge Analytica is tied to the inquiry being led by Robert Mueller, the special counsel, but at least 2 executives from Cambridge Analytica were questioned by Mueller's team as recently as December. The Times reports tonight, quote, in a sign of the inquiry's scope, one of the prosecutors involved in the Cambridge Analytica case is the assistant chief of the Justice Department's Securities and Financial Fraud Division. The effort is being assisted by at least one agent who investigates cybercrime for the FBI. That's interesting. And meanwhile, we also have a whole new plot line to try to figure out here tonight. I swear, the news gods save these things up for me when I go fishing. It's like a test for me to see if I can get right back into the swing of things and make sense of something like this right after I get back. This is a weird one. This one starts with basketball, sort of. You know how there's regular soccer, there's pro soccer, and then there's indoor soccer, which kind of looks like a cross between ice hockey and foosball, but it's live? Arena soccer hasn't quite caught on the same way, but it's basically a spin-off of normal soccer, which is obviously hugely profitable, successful, and popular. Similarly, you know how there was once an XFL? There was once an XFL spin-off of pro football. Not the NFL, the XFL. It was like a cross between pro football and pro wrestling. That spin-off didn't catch on either. The XFL only lasted one season. Well, like arena soccer for soccer and like the XFL for football, there is also a pro basketball spin-off now. It's 3-on-3 instead of 5-on-5. You play on just a half court instead of the full court. And the rules are tweaked to make it just different enough that it's a spin-off of regular basketball. It's not just a mini version of pro ball. And there's all sorts of gimmicks in this 3-on-3 game. In regular basketball, you get 1 point for a free throw, you get 2 points for a normal shot, you get 3 points if you shoot from outside that arc that marks that U, that far distance from the basket. In the new 3-on-3 basketball spin-off, in addition to 1, 2, and 3-point shots, there's also a 4-point shot. If you stand in one of those specific little circles marked with a 4, those spots are really far away. And so to shoot from there, you get extra points, 4 points. There's also, of course, only 3 players on a side instead of 5 players. There's a very fast shot clock, which means you have to take a shot at the hoop very quickly after you get the ball, which I'm sure makes it very exciting for fans because there's tons of shooting. For the players, it's maybe also nice because there's not that much running around, right? It's a short court. It's only half a court. You have to shoot really fast. There's not a lot of players on the court to be passing the thing around anyway. It is perhaps not a coincidence that the athletes expected to be the stars of the 3-on-3 league are players that are retired from the NBA. Players who are presumably still very big and very strong and probably still very good shots, but maybe they don't want to run up and down the court so much anymore. 3-on-3 pro basketball may eventually become, the biggest. It may become bigger than NASCAR, bigger than the NFL, bigger than Olympic curling. Who knows? Sky's the limit. But for now, pro 3-on-3 basketball is a quirky idea, right? It's a first season startup idea. It might work, might not. Among the founders of the league are Ice Cube, legendary rapper from NWA and lots of other things, who has gone on to an extremely successful career in music and acting and now sports entrepreneurship. If you saw the movie Straight Outta Compton, the guy who played Ice Cube in Straight Outta Compton was actually Ice Cube's son in real life. What? I know. Another league founder for this 3-on-3 basketball league, along with Ice Cube, is a connected Hollywood guy named Jeff Kwatnitz. Now, last month, Mr. Cube and Mr. Kwatnitz, co-founders of this basketball league, they filed a lawsuit in California related to the financing for their new basketball league. They brought a civil lawsuit against investors who they say promised a ton of money to get the league up and running, but these investors then didn't fall through on their commitments, and that hurt the league. And whatever the merits of this lawsuit overall, it definitely makes clear that these guys are thinking big about their little startup basketball league. Because in this civil lawsuit, they're suing for damages. Specifically, they're suing for $1.2 billion in damages. Sure, why not? The reason this random startup, half-court, retiree-oriented new basketball league is making national news tonight is actually because of a new filing in that lawsuit. And with that new filing, that lawsuit diverts a little bit from the 4-point shots and the quick shot clock and the exciting new rules about technical fouls and swearing. With this new filing in this lawsuit, it instead veered sharply toward the White House and weirdly toward the special counsel's investigation. The basketball league lawsuit did. I'm not kidding. That story's next. Stay with us.